You're right, guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a continuation of last week's video looking at that air filter. The conclusion I came from that video was that there was some sort of restriction somewhere because of the MAF sensor signal at high RPM was getting pegged at 4.4 and the boost was losing boost at high RPM. Now, I ended that video by saying I'm going to start checking for restrictions elsewhere in the system. But one thing I thought, which is a complete hypothesis, maybe the MAF sensor is pegged at 4.4 volts and maybe the car's ECU can see that the MAF sensor is close to the limit and it's pulling boost out to keep the airflow down. I'm not sure. So with that being said, what I've done is I've put a bigger MAF housing on the engine. So whereas before it was an 80mm outside diameter, now it's a 90mm outside diameter. And that will give the MAF sensor a bigger range to measure. So what I want to see now, I'm just going to do the same logs as before on the PC. And what I want to do is to see if what happens to the MAF voltage with the bigger MAF housing. Does it still top out at 4.4? Maybe it does, I don't know, but that is what we're going to find out here. Just going to do a full throttle pull, and I'm just going to look at the black line it is on the data log, and just to see what happens to that. So that's what I'm going to do now, a quick pull and see what happens. So that's 3,500 RPM and just full bore. I'm not sure what happened to the MAF signal, but I can tell you that it's still not holding boost to RPM. The boost is still tapering off. But it'll be interesting to see what happened with the MAF signal. I'm going to find it interesting anyway, just to see what sort of voltage it got to. But that's it for the on-road testing. That was the only thing I wanted to do. Just a full throttle pull to, I think it must have gone to about 6,000 RPM, just to see how that MAF voltage looks with the bigger MAF housing versus the smaller MAF housing. Let's get back to the office and we'll go through it on the computer. So this is the full throttle run here, and we can see that the MAF signal, the black line, is doing more or less exactly the same thing as it did before. It gets up to here and then it starts to flatten out, which tells me that that's where the restriction is. I'd expect it to be leveling out as the volumetric efficiency gets less at higher RPM, but probably not as much as that. The difference in this one being that it's topping out at around 4 volts, 3.95, 4 volts, whereas the other one was doing this at around 4.4 volts. So that is the difference between the big housing and the small housing. In a nutshell, this tells me that the MAF sensor is not the problem. I can't actually find the exact specs for the MAF sensor that's on the car. I found it for other ones from Bosch, and they do make some MAF sensors that do top out at 4.4 volts. But looking on the forums, the VAG forums of the 1.8 turbo engine, and from what I can tell from there, most people are saying it goes up to 5 volts, the stock sensors. So I'm probably going to stick with this MAF sensor just to be on the safe side for now, and continue on through the system looking for restrictions. It could be the intercooler piping on the turbo outlet. I think that looks a bit constricted there, but the downpipe, I think, is going to be the main culprit. If you want to see what happens with this in this series of videos, what changes I make and what the differences are, obviously subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button, very important. That's it for now. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you again in next week's video.